Andy Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
He is an astrologer, a human design expert, gene keys expert, but today he's going to be talking to us about astrology, technology, and self-actualization. He is going to help us look into the recent past through the lens of astrology, exploring some of the most influential technologies and world events, which are setting up the stage for the Age of Aquarius. I cannot wait to hear what
I know. And
you are going to say,
always
Andy.
has the best stuff to share. Cannot wait.
So we're going to just pass it on over to you.
Yes. Welcome, Andy.
Welcome, Andy.
So my name's Andy, and I've been with Healy for about 18, 19 months or so now. I was signed up by the same person who signed up Ashley, our dear friend Devin, and I have been using mine extensively ever since, and I'm really so grateful for the support that it has brought into my life, and I'm excited to share part of my work today. So I'm an astrologer. That kind of forms the foundation of everything that I do. Is everybody off on video? Is that what's happening here? Is no one else on video? Just want to see faces. There we are. Hi, people. It's good to know that I'm not just talking. Yeah, so I've been studying astrology for many years, and what I'm going to be sharing today is sort of high-level astrology forecast for the next 18 months or so, but to the end of 2023, and then kind of looking into the big themes that we're going to be seeing 2024 and beyond. So I'm sure, since this is organized by the Vibe Tribe, most people here are into astrology. I would guess on some level people tend to follow things, and I have a little bit of a different way of working with astrology, I would say, than some people. I'd like to make it very, very practical, and really, but as from a meta perspective. And so I'm really looking at some of the themes that we can discern when we are really paying attention to things, and we can kind of step back from our story for a second and realize what's really happening here. So today's a solstice. The solstice brings in the sign of Cancer. So I'm a Cancer sun. My birthday's in 9 days, and so I'm loving this time of the year always. It's a really interesting time. I'm guessing most people here are in and around the United States or something like that. And so we've got this really busy energy that brings us into summer, right? We kind of like ride this wave of Gemini, this like really social, playful, very, very adaptable energy. And then by the time the summer solstice comes around, Cancer's like, okay, let's slow down though. And we need to like take care of ourselves. And we need to make sure that we realize that there's 2 months left of summer, and we can't just go all summer long, or we're going to burn ourselves out. And so Cancer, I love this time of year because it reminds me, oh yeah, like make sure I take care of myself, get in the water, everything like that. So really what we're noticing now astrologically is we're coming into a place of spaciousness. There was a lot of really busy kind of almost frenetic energy to about the last 6 months or so. A lot of planets kind of picking off each other. And so now that we have a little bit of space in the chart, these next 2 months, I would just really sink into that, because June, July, we're gonna just be able to kind of go about our business here. The big themes that we've been seeing so far this year have been around some pretty heavy topics. You know, people have been moving through a lot of grief and a lot of heaviness, been kind of in the air at this time. And we're noticing we're at this kind of crossroads at this time as well, where we can kind of, you know, we're confronted with a lot of options about where we want to go with our life. And we've already made the choices, right? Like this is the kind of thing that's really astounding to see when we come to times like this, is like to be confronted with a decision where it's like, okay, yeah, the old me definitely would have gone this way. And yeah, I kind of feel sad in some level that I don't want to go that way anymore. And I kind of miss going that way in certain levels, right? Like we know that we're moving in this direction that is, you know, expanding our consciousness and our healing path. And yet we still long, parts of us still long for this, you know, old life we had. And so what's happening now is we have kind of Saturn, and Saturn really brings consequences in astrology. Saturn is the law of karma, cause and effect is really what we see. And so we're seeing a lot of consequences of, you know, where we've arrived in our life. You know, so you might be in a place where you're very happy. You've gotten to a place where your business is good and money's good, and you got in the relationship, or moved into the new house, or whatever it might be. And we're noticing there are some unintended consequences that we didn't necessarily think were going to be a part of this coming in right now. And we're going to keep seeing this throughout the rest of the year here. And in about the end of July, July 31st is when this aspect peaks, is we're kind of building up to this intensification. And what's really cool about it is that it really involves the planet Uranus. And Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. And many of you have probably heard that we are in the Age of Aquarius. And part of what I want to do today is give some substance to what that means, right? Like, what does it mean that we're in the Age of Aquarius now? What is that? What does the Age of Aquarius do? And then what does it mean now that we are here for us? So, and what role does technology play in this next kind of evolution of humanity? And so Uranus coming with the, I'm going to try to stay out of the weeds astrologically today. I'm not going to try to get into this one is square to that one and conjunct this. Like people tend to gloss over when we get into that. And so I'm going to try to keep it high level. And so if you do have questions about some of this stuff, I want to keep some space for that at the end. So what we're seeing is this like kind of galvanizing around this Uranian, unpredictable, chaotic energy that is emerging right now. And Uranus rules Aquarius, and Aquarius, among other things, is very, very influential in technology. Electricity are things that we associate with Aquarius. Aquarius also represents our most enlightened humanity that we can imagine. It is the pinnacle of human self-actualization, whereas Pisces represents the next sign in the zodiac, represents like what lies beyond, right, this realm. Like Aquarius is like focused on like how do we reach our pinnacle here and now, and what does that look like? And it can be a bit cold emotionally, which is kind of how we see it emerge through this technology, because technology isn't particularly emotional either. And so as we kind of move through this August, will be another kind of peak here. And so just like really like I would recommend like end of July, early August, just kind of having that in the back of your head that we're going to be dealing with some very unpredictable energy, and it's going to be affecting very tangible things in our life. So I'm sure you're sick of hearing about things like gas prices and the economy. And these are the kind of things that we're going to be seeing. Uranus is in Taurus right now. Taurus is the bull, right? Which is the symbol of the New York Stock Exchange. So this is very influential over our finances at this time. And so What's cool about Aquarius is it comes after Capricorn. So Capricorn is like our power structures, right? Capricorn is like the father archetype of like imposition and like making laws and you can't do this and I know what's best for you, right? There's somebody at the top of a hierarchy in Capricorn, and Aquarius is this very reforming energy that says we need to flatten these hierarchies, we need to decentralize and you know, like return to some kind of grassroots. And first of all, like that's to me really always seemed an apt metaphor for just like the model for selling Healy, right? This kind of network marketing model, because it is so decentralized, right? We have all these kind of nodes that are just kind of like self-sustaining out there. And so this isn't a traditional patriarchal Capricornian business model that we're working with here at Healy, right? It is the model itself is very Aquarian because it is decentralized. And yeah, you could obviously trace, you know, the lineage up to the head of sales in the US or something like that. I don't know, you know, right? But like, there are these very self-sustaining nodes that kind of come and they have their own identity. They have their own, you know, why, they have their own purpose for what they're doing with this. And so that's, I think, just a really, I think, revolutionary way of looking at things, even though, you know, the model can really, it's easy to shit on this model if you're looking at it from the outside too, right? Like a lot of people will. And so I just want to like name that like we're working with something that even before we get into the technological piece for Healy is already kind of tapping into this Aquarian energy that we're working with here. And what's really fascinating is that over the next 2 years here, we're going to be really seeing this like healing journey come into this like onto center stage. So March 2023 is really the next big kind of big picture movement that I'm kind of tracking astrologically. What we're seeing right now is Chiron is in Aries. Chiron is like the wounded healer and really represents our healing journey and our wounding, and some of our shadows that kind of we can see through Chiron. But similarly, physical health is a big piece of it, and the word Chiron is where the word chiropractor comes from. And so like this is, and it's an ancient Greek myth, right? Exactly, you get it actually. And so like we can see why these things play out the way they do. And with Jupiter moving through Aries to make this like big conjunction with Chiron in March 2023, Jupiter expands, Jupiter exaggerates, Jupiter makes things painfully obvious. And it is this very abundant energy when it is used responsibly. It can be very irresponsible when it is in its shadow. And so, but no matter what, it's going to expand. And with Chiron, it's going to be really like, if you've been on this healing path and you've been doing your work, next March will truly be a culmination of all the work that you put in so far. There might be some tenderness, and there always is some tenderness with Chiron, right? We can be very triggered around some of our wounds. And so just like leaning into some of those over these next several months here is going to really, really help us here, because what we see with things like Chiron is that, you know, our wound becomes this offering that we have for the world. As you'll learn later from Mark Bentley, every shadow contains a gift. And so there's this incredible potential held here. And so just like knowing that like this healing journey, most of us know when our healing journey began in some capacity, whether it is your healing your gut or healing your shadows, right? There's all kind of encompassed into this. And so as we kind of move through next year, we're going to have this other kind of crossroads coming in now. And what we're really going to be seeing is like, you're going to be, it's like, okay, do I destroy this part of my life, or do I try to reform this part of my life? It is really what we're going to be seeing, because the influence that we're seeing now from Saturn is going to shift into a more Plutonian influence of the planet Pluto. So Pluto is destruction, it is birth, it is life, it is rebirth, it is death, it is everything in between. Pluto is the archetypal shaman that really reveals like the underbelly, what lies beneath of things. And so we're going to be really wondering like okay, like what can we keep out of what we've already built? And this applies to individuals, communities, the world, right? Like what collective systems are worth kind of continuing with? Which ones just need to be burned to the ground? And really, how do we know which is which? Because it's confusing, and there's, again, this is why, like, and I'm excited that people like Devin and Mark Bentley are sharing later on like developing a relationship with like our own inner authority, and how we can be self-empowered and develop a sense of agency over ourselves in the world, because we will need to be able to make confident decisions quickly. And as we kind of progress into 2024, this is when Pluto enters Aquarius. And this is like, things tend to happen like right at the beginning of Pluto transits. So in 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn. As I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, Capricorn is like power structures and like very, very kind of patriarchal values. Reputation kind of stuff is also very, very Capricornian. And so when Pluto entered Capricorn, the stock market crashed in 2008, and we had the Great Recession, and rippled for 15. I mean, most of Europe still hasn't even recovered from some of this stuff. You're seeing Turkey's currency completely collapsing, still Greek. There's all these, I mean, economic systems around the world that have still not fully recovered from 2008, and that was just the very beginning of Pluto's journey through Capricorn. And so what I would expect something similar to happen at the beginning of Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto enters Aquarius in 2024, so January 2024. And so thinking big picture here, like, there's a good chance that technology will, save humanity. There's also a good chance that technology can destroy humanity, right? We're kind of at this crossroads right here. And so things like artificial intelligence, where we know can complicate our emotional well-being when you see things like how it's used in social media, right? And in the exact same way, we are going to need artificial intelligence and revolutionary technologies to pull us out of this sort of trajectory that we know is unsustainable for humanity here. And some of the technologies I'm really excited about, and I'll save Healy for the end, and just microcurrent in general. The first one I'm really excited about is Bitcoin. So, again, very Aquarian, totally decentralized, right? Bitcoin was actually birthed out of the Great Recession in 2008. was when Bitcoin started. And so, and let me ask you guys, Ashley and Kristen, are you guys into Bitcoin at all? You guys into crypto?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just fine. That's
Yeah.
just fine.
Mhm.
Slow and steady with this stuff.
Yep.
So
Is it, will
I
still have a chance?
oh yeah, absolutely. It's a really good time right now, actually, because it definitely. So short term, the price of Bitcoin is very coupled to the broader economic system, and so a recession for the world economy will not be good for the price of Bitcoin in the short term, but it is strengthening the underlying system very much so right now. And so like I don't worry about the price of Bitcoin. I'm concerned about the integrity of the system more than anything else at this point. There's about a bazillion cryptocurrencies out there now. They're showing ads for them on the Super Bowl, which is insane. You've got Mark Wahlberg giving people financial advice in the Super Bowl, which is no, what was like? It was Matt Damon. That's who it was. And I'll just give a little bit of this is not financial advice. Just to give you some clarity, I would steer clear of really anything that's not Bitcoin. Personally, there's a lot of different cryptocurrencies out there, and none of them are actually decentralized. All of them, there's someone pulling the strings. Many are corrupted by corporate money already. So Bitcoin is the only one that's actually decentralized and that actually has a chance of enduring. So one of the things you'll hear about a lot with Bitcoin is that it's bad for the environment. And you might have heard this already. Like, oh my gosh, they have all this mining, it's bad for the environment. If you're building the backbone of a world financial system, don't you think that requires a bit of energy to just do? Like, we need energy in order to run this system, and the ability to run Bitcoin's algorithm just takes energy. And so like, don't let that stop you, because like it's really it's not an issue. It's more of people hating than anything else. So I would just be very careful about investing in anything that's not Bitcoin, and just know you're gambling. It's basically investing in stocks, and Bitcoin is the one that I see as slow and steady building for the long haul. Now, some of the other technologies I think are really interesting is things like meditation, right? Things like breath work, things like working with the body. We're noticing, and there's a term called a psychotechnology that is another big piece here. And this is really essential to help us reach this like kind of pinnacle of human enlightenment that is a potential for humanity as we're going through the age of Aquarius. Like, we can really, this can be an incredible golden age. We just have to choose that path and keep choosing that path, and then we can get there. So again, because of this need, so like one of the things I would hear from some of my more spiritual friends when I got into Healy, when I would like, hey, you should get this thing, I would hear things like, I don't need Healy, I meditate. Or I don't need this, I do Kundalini yoga, and everything I need to do is in there. And I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, that's one way, sure. That's a lot of time to invest in something that you can just kind of plug into yourself and can help you. And there is more harmful technology around us every day that we need technology to lift us out of some of what it kind of brings us into. So I'm not going to get into things like, what are the merits of if 5G is bad for us or not, but like, we know that like even our Wi-Fi router at home is best if we turn it off at night, because like we are susceptible to some of this radiation. We know this stuff already. Not to mention the power lines over our houses and, you know, the amount of electronics we just have to expose ourselves to in order to be a part of society right now, right? Like you have to have a phone in your pocket that's emitting radiation. Like these are necessities right now. And so isn't it kind of patriarchal to think that like we don't need the help of technology? Like, isn't that kind of like a really like old paradigm way of thinking, that like, oh, I should be able to do this on my own and I don't need this kind of thing because I can sit and meditate for an hour a day and whatever. Like that's really actually kind of insane to me when people talk like that. And I try to offer that reflection of like, well, like, don't you think these things are given to us for a reason to help us at a certain time in your life? You know how like when like a certain plant comes into your life at exactly the right time, or a certain person comes into your life at exactly the right time. What's the difference between that and a piece of technology, right? There's none whatsoever. And the synchronicities around the people involved with Healy are, I mean, I rarely witnessed something quite so astounding, right? Like I'm grateful because I wouldn't have bought into Healy if it wasn't coming to me from Devin, right? Like if it was anyone else, I would have been like, I don't know about this, but like, oh, you're saying, okay, all right, I'll listen to you. And it came from Mark Bentley. Oh, okay, I'm definitely listening now. Like you got my attention. And so I just want to like name that like part of what's so cool about Healy is this incredible technology. And the other part that is so unique about it is like we have to share from our heart around our experience with Healy in order for this to like have an impact. And this other piece of Aquarius is this like intense social responsibility. And like I want to just offer that like if you're here and if you're, you know, caring about Healy and using your Healy, I mean, I would ask you the question, you know, to what extent are you responsible to share this with people? Like, do you have an obligation to, you know, at least inform people that this thing's out there, right? I had a friend just yesterday who had knee surgery and is like potentially like just gonna have to go back in again to do knee surgery. I'm like, have you tried microcurrent at all? And no, I was like, oh my gosh. like it's just, and it's, we know that this isn't the kind of thing that is taught to Western medical professionals. It's not really even in their realm of knowing, right? And so as people who are trying this stuff and are on the front lines, right? And like we're still in a very early adoption phase, I would say, for something like Healy. And so like just tapping into this and seeing that like we have this incredible potential, and if we can humble ourselves and say like, okay, I could use some help with this work that I'm trying to do, and give ourselves the time to get to know Healy. And like that's been a thing for me too. Like I have to like figure out how to use Healy for me personally, right? Like I'm not like it, and you develop relationships with the programs, right? And that's, I think, a really kind of fun piece to this is like you do get to kind of play with it and explore. And it's not like, as much as we try to like fit it into like a very Capricornian model of like, oh, here's the manual and this is what things are for and this is how you do this kind of stuff, and if you want to fix your migraines you use this program, and if you have a, you know, back pain you use this. But like at the same point, like you just have to try this stuff out and you have to ask other people about it. And there's this community that like the community around Healy, which is again very Aquarian. Aquarius needs community because in these chaotic times, we lose ourselves without this. So programs that coincide with astrological shifts right now. Great question. You know, from a very basic level, I think everyone should be working with the lungs, just in general. because energetically, you can learn from a Chinese medicine perspective, and this is actually echoed in the Indian Hindu traditions, is that the lungs is where we store our grief. It's where we like have this kind of heaviness that like really builds up in the lungs, not to mention infectious lung diseases that, you know, are fucking with shit right now. And so there you go. I love it, Rita. And so the lungs meridian program, I mean, that should be on a once or twice a week right now, guaranteed. Like, honestly, I prefer that. I prefer the lungs meridian program to the lungs bioenergetic harmony program. Just from what I notice, I notice more from that. I have a client who's been moving through a lot of grief, and she's using the lungs program every day right now, and it's helping her with their asthma. Of course it is, right? You know, and so and it's that to me is a no-brainer, because like 2022 for me, the central theme is grief, and really the power in that, and like working with that and engaging it and like holding your hand out to grief to make friends with it. Like, and so the lungs are really, really, really crucial for that right now. On top of that, I mean, any of the bioenergetic defense programs are I mean, just like, if I'm going into a store right now, I'm like, I'm running one of these things, because like, again, maybe you're not noticing this, maybe this is just the people around me, but there's a lot of heaviness, and a lot of like people's shadows are just kind of coming out, and there's this like shortness, and it's, I just don't have space for that in my life. And so like I've put up very, very firm energetic boundaries and relational boundaries. And if I can put up a microcurrent boundary when I'm out there, absolutely, I need it, absolutely. And I would say especially the electrosensitivity one, because again, I mean, I don't want to get like into like a paranoid way about things, but I'm not a big fan of 5G personally. Like, we just don't know about this stuff. Like, again, we just don't know how this stuff affects us. I'm not saying that it's a plot to do whatever. I'm just saying, like, I think we need to know more about this stuff. And I think the more that we can harmonize, right, the energy that's coming in, and you know, keep things out if we need to, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. And I mean, I'm just a huge fan of all the job programs. Like, I think people who are in Healy are movers and shakers generally, right? People that are here are kind of getting things done, right? We're kind of our little own entrepreneurs. And so those job programs, I don't know where I'd be without most of those job programs. Positive, my favorite is to do activation into positive thoughts. I'll kind of do those back to back. And then, I mean, I'm in like a 4-hour flow after that, where I'm just like in it, and I got my work going, and I'm sending out whatever I need to. Those are the ones that I use most of the time at this point. I've actually, and I know this is not a recommendation, right? But I have a 4.5-month-old son, and I would never hook up these to him, but I've been using the information field ones on him, just like the quantum ones, and it really helps. It's helped him sleep, it's helped him calm down. Like, it's a really useful thing. And so I'm excited to kind of continue to like do little scans on him, because he can't talk, he can't tell me anything, right? And so if something comes up with his eyes, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I wonder like what it is. He was crying his eyes out for like 2 hours one day, and I ran a scan on him, and of course tonsils came up because he's been screaming at me. So I was like, okay, yeah, that makes some sense to me. So those are the programs that I see as really essential for this. Moving forward, I would say emotional well-being, especially when we're going into like 2024 and beyond. Like, we're just gonna need to have really clear emotional boundaries, and what we have the capacity to care about, right? Like we can't get wrapped up in every single news cycle and every single person who tries to sell us a sad story, you know, like I just don't have space for all that stuff. And so things like emotional well-being, that's one of my favorite ones personally, when like I'm just like I'm noticing I'm taking on stuff from other people, is like, okay, yeah, can I come back to myself here? And I just know that like you know, both maybe Devin and Mark will talk about this, but as we move towards 2027, we're going to see continued destabilization, and we're going to see potentially infrastructure holes emerge, and there's going to be pain around that. Like there's no way around it. And so if we can, you know, yes, I see that, and my heart goes out to these people, but I can't give you my emotional energy. You know, these are the kind of things that I view as really some of the things that Healy can help with so much. Yeah, I think that's about all I kind of had for that right now. I'm open to some questions around that too. If anything else is coming up for you, Kristen or Ashley.
I know there's a whole bunch of planets that are coming into some kind of alignment soon. Do you know anything about that?
Planets coming into alignment soon.
Or like
seven
seven
are gonna be,
planets, or
who said that? Pepper? I think
Yeah.
Pepper.
like in the next couple days or something.
I'm not personally aware of anything like that. And coming into alignment, I'm trying to understand what
I don't
exactly.
even know if that's the
God.
right word or not, but
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is that what exactly she means by that? But the next couple of days, I can take a look at the chart here and just see what I notice.
I have a little bit of information on that.
do you?
Yeah.
I do.
Sure.
It came up, it came up in my feed the other day. It's a rare 5-planet lineup
Mhm.
coming to June in the night sky, and it's supposed to be, I believe, this coming up this next week. How to see the 5 planets align in order for the first time in 18 years, and then I believe it's not going to happen again for maybe another 100 or so years.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, they might just kind of look like they're next to each other or something in the sky, is what I'm assuming probably will happen. You might see Mars, the moon.
Yeah, they actually line up. The way that they're projecting that they're going to be lining up is almost as stair steps. So when you look at them in the night sky from our hemisphere, they will, left to right, being left the lowest, they will literally look like stair steps going up. But there's a lot of information that you can grab online about it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Andy, I'm interested to know, since today is just the beginning of a 12-week deep dive program that we're going to be doing with Healy. What, like the next 12 weeks, like this summer, what's kind of like, is there kind of a forecast that you can give us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, right now, I would always be tuning into the new moon, full moon rhythm, right? Just kind of checking in with that. Planting seeds in the new moon, harvesting them on the full moon, right? That's kind of like the rhythm that I always recommend keeping there. New moons are very internal. So we have a Cancer new moon coming up on June 28th. Again, what I'm seeing in the chart right now is things are pretty spacious. And so giving yourself some time to yourself around the end of June here, I think would be really useful. And then, moving forward these next 12 weeks, again, I'm really just looking at like the end of July. And when we're seeing like, there's going to be this like gradual buildup towards like, again, this last week of July. And just really, I would be making peace with this energy of Uranus, which is unpredictable, kind of nervous energy, and can be really anxious energy as well. But it's this, we kind of toe this line, right, between kind of breakdown and breakthrough, right? And that's really what Uranus is offering us this opportunity to do over, and this is I think the energy of the summer for me, that I'm looking at. Yes, Venus is back in Gemini, which is, a really playful place for that to be. When we get into Leo season, it's, that's peak summer, right? That's we're being ruled by the sun at that point. And so I think really, that's really the opportunity to step into our star power, right? And to own our individuality. But I think really keeping an eye on, like, first of all, like, work, right? So we're going to see Mars. Mars is our work. And really, how are we using our energy? And is that in alignment with our story of self-actualization, right? Is this going to bring us towards this kind of ascending path, or are we moving down with this? And continue to kind of frame things through this lens is going to be really useful. And I would say, just keep tuning into this new moon, full moon rhythm, right? We're gonna have a full moon in Capricorn that will be pretty close to Pluto, right on Pluto, actually. So again, some pretty potentially heavy energy coming in here. So I would just really be like, the thing that I'm telling most people, like how to work with what we're going to be seeing right now, is to just be flexible, right? To be able to adapt. This kind of Taoist proverb of being like water, right? How can you absorb the energy that comes at you and then use it, right? I don't know if anyone here has watched Game of Thrones. I was a big nerd fan of Game of Thrones for many years. Ashley, I see you. Yeah, we'll talk about that sometime. So you might remember, I think it was season 1 or 2, Lord Baelish gives a speech about how chaos is a ladder. And how when we have these disruptions and these big changes coming through, they're an opportunity to actually ascend. And Aquarius is very, very chaotic energy. We're going to be seeing exponential change, like truly exponential change moving through. And so I would really just like, what can you do to be flexible? What can you do to, there's this idea, and I'll lay a pitch here for some of my work, actually. So I lead people through a why program of like learning why they do what they do. Because when we get into these big changes, we're going to need to hold what we do a little bit more lightly at times. But if we remember why we do these things, that allows us existential flexibility, that we can shift, we can pivot, we can stay true to our mission in life if something shuts down, right? So like, I mean, we know that there's a fragile ecosystem that is kind of holding the entire world together right now. And how can we be anti-fragile? How can we grow when we are subjected to unexpected changes, instead of just weathering them, or instead of them dominating us? But how can we work with it, right, to then ascend? Is really the capacity that I've been working on with my clients, and that comes down to, again, knowing what you care about. Right. So like over that 12 weeks, like, I mean, committing to anything for 12 weeks, like you guys are doing, will bring transformation. Right. And so you've got a whole program that you're doing there. And something that I would bring my clients into is like, what do you care about? What are your core values? And how are those going to help you make the decisions and stay true to your integrity when you need to be able to change? So those are the those are the big skills and concepts that I would be becoming familiar with, because there's this just really unpredictable energy on the horizon here, and it's coming, and it's just hitting us in waves right now. We're really early on in the Age of Aquarius right now, and so like every time a new kind of domino ticks around into Aquarius, we get this extra kind of layer playing in there. And again, Pluto is about to enter the Age of Aquarius. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the American Revolution, we had the French Revolution, we drafted the United States Constitution the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. So these are really big potentials on the horizon here. And I would be considering like, what is, we have this social contract, right, that we keep talking about, but like, I never signed anything. And to start considering like, what are the terms by which we would give up our power to some kind of thing? Like, what are the terms? So like start this like writing out maybe like the preamble to your own constitution and your own social contract, and what does that look like? Because we have this potential to envision a new enlightened society with Aquarius here, or we could turn into chaos and contrarians and just try to react to what happened, and that's just creating more of the same. So we need to rise above some of our shadow reactions and be able to make choices freely and not in a reactive way. So those are the big things that I'm seeing as essential, and to the extent that mindfulness, and I mean, I don't even know what all the different programs are that are, I'm not as engaged with Healy as I think Kristen and Ashley are. So I see there's a flexible program. I'm not even aware of that one. So maybe I need to brush up a little bit on some of my programs. But I just know that to the extent that you are able to stay grounded and stay within yourself and know what you care about, I would be using technology to aid you in that as much as possible, because we just are in a space of unprecedented change, and to try to apply the rules that got us here to the future would be insane. Like, we have to be playing with a new rule book. We just, because and that's, life is changing. So these things are just immensely helpful.
Well, thank you so much. I hope that you join us on this 12 weeks, because we will be going into all these programs.
Oh, really? Cool.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. Well,
Really different ones.
Yeah. And like
oh,
why you should run certain ones that you would never think that program would be good for, grief or, something like that. So it's going to be,
interesting.
yeah, please join
That
us.
sounds super cool. Yeah, I'll try to engage as much as I can. My son takes up a lot of my time these days. But I do love what you're doing here, and like I'm just really just thanks for having me on here. I
Yeah,
love
thank you so much.
talking about astrology, and I hope it made sense. It's like,
It also is helpful to know what's coming up, and when if you're experiencing anxiety, and you can look into the astrology and understand that that's a certain planet that is bringing that up for you, then you can kind of take a deep breath. So that knowledge is so powerful. So thank you. That was really, really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Amazing.
I appreciate that. I gotta pass the host baton back to you.
Oh, that's
now.
right. Yes, you
Yeah.
do. Thank you.
So yeah, I didn't end up sharing my screen.
Yeah, so we're good. We're good.
You
And
got it?
why don't you just type in there how people can get in touch with you, Andy,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
in the chat, and then we can always share it later in the Facebook group as well.
I wonder if
Thanks for bringing it out, the token, but I really appreciate it.
So my website is andyhansen.com. Pretty simple. On Instagram, I am Astro Andy Hansen. And I write a lot. I am putting out e-courses soon here as well. And I host a lot of events here in Minneapolis, which where I'm based. But I do readings. I do coaching. I do a lot of one-on-one work with people on transcending their shadows and breaking out of the patterns that keep them stuck. So those are the kind of things I'm passionate about doing with people one-on-one. And if any of this stuff if the stuff I'm talking about resonates, definitely check out my website. I've got some good writings there, and looks like you got a sound bath setting up here. So that's
Yeah.
oh my gosh, nice. Well, I have another event I gotta run off to today. Solstice, right? We're doing it.
It's the day. Thanks,
Well, thank
Andy.
you so much, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Thanks,
Love you.
Kristen.
We miss
I hope
you.
I love you guys too. Take care.
Yeah,
All right.
take care.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh.